Most anime set around 4 high school girls is generally a fanservice show waiting to happen, more times than not with modern anime. Fanservice sells, and it seems Japan loves it when high school characters are attached to said fanservice. But luckily, there's still anime being made using this type of cast dynamic while not stooping to shallow tactics to rope the viewers in. A place further than the universe is what more slice-of-life adventure series should aim to be. Tales of growing up and figuring out who you want to be in life are a surefire way to market to a wide range of people. If done correctly, you can wiggle in something for everyone. If you use your cast to its full potential, allowing for the story to have meaning, as should the characters, while being relatable all at the same time. And that's what this series does, and does very well. The general idea for the show is you have 4 girls all heading to Antarctica for different reasons, but ultimately in the process of getting there, build something they weren't expecting. A friendship. You have Kamari, the bubbly persona who feels like she wasted her school life not really doing anything of importance, and just feels like she needs to go anywhere that isn't in her normal day-to-day routine. After hearing about this strange girl with a fascination to travel to Antarctica, this ultimately sets her on a path to reach it with this strange girl. Her mother went to Antarctica in the past but never returned, so ultimately her goal is to travel to this land that took her mother and see if she can put the past behind her. Now right away this establishes enough to work as a story. Having a girl who feels like she wasted her school life doing nothing is something that many can relate to, thinking back to their school years or what they might be experiencing currently. With Shirase's story being less relatable for the general public but allows for an intriguing plotline of why someone would be so determined to go to a frozen land with nothing but the cold around them. But the anime doesn't stop there and introduces 2 other characters, Hinata as well as Yuzuki, who were my personal favorites in the show. Hinata feels more like a toned-down Kamari. She seems to have an inspirational quote always at the ready for any scenario, and she overall has a very positive attitude which seems to keep the general spirits high. But she tags along for the trip for reasons at the start that are pretty vague, but over the course you see why someone like her wanted to get away from what general life has to offer and be at peace in such an empty and beautiful environment. And then you have Yuzuki, the girl who since she was a child has been thrusted into the world of fame, and the one that is very much against the idea to traveling to Antarctica despite her job insisting on it. Now Yuzuki's story is my personal favorite in the show because though the idea of having a girl not really having a normal life due to being thrusted into the world of stardom isn't new, the way it gets executed and establishes her growing friendships between the 3 is simply remarkable and plays into my favorite aspect to the series, how it handles friendship. The general idea of having friends is something people don't really think of. When you're friends with someone, that's that. You call them a friend, but you don't really decide when you're friends usually. Naturally, being around someone long enough with good chemistry establishes you as a friend without the need for the question, will you be my friend? And a place further than the universe understands this concept, which I find anime that have that not friends and then friends arc to be pretty superficial. None of them start out as friends, and this confuses Yuzuki at first because from her eyes, they all seem like friends. Something she never really had, as anyone who ever wanted to be around her wanted to do so for the fame. Seeing these 3 girls all working at traveling to the same place seems like what she envisioned friendship to be, but they all agree right then and there they aren't really friends, they all just want to go to Antarctica so they should work together. And when the time comes that this gets brought back up, when the journey is closer to being over, how Yuzuki comes to the realization that for some time now they have been friends, and the idea that you don't decide when or where it happens, it just does, is spot on. Never in my life, maybe past when I was 5, did I say, do you want to be my friend? Naturally, you establish a friendship through your day-to-day life, and how the series manages to naturally build in from a group all with the same objective to a group of best friends is simply wonderful. To have 13 episodes to figure out how to get to this wonderful place, to traveling there, to getting there, and then to head home is a grand ambition. But I feel the overall pacing to the series to remain nearly perfect the entire way through. At times I did question, is there really enough time to do everything that they set out to do from the beginning? But leaving episode 13, I didn't feel like anything was rushed or dragged out. Now single core series tend to feel like there's either not enough happening or too much did with the episode count given. But this anime managed to walk that line and have each episode feel like it was needed on this adventure, making for a both great slice of life and adventure series. Not to mention the comedy in this series I found to be quite amusing. It's that kind of comedy that isn't necessarily gag comedy for the most part, it's just that natural humor that comes out when you're with a group of friends or witnessing something from a distance. It's hard to nail that real humor you experience in your day-to-day life, but I think they managed to nail it more times than not. My only real complaint was the arc that gets brought up near the beginning of this series, which was the story arc of Kamari's best friend Megami, the role model in her life. There was enough time for what they pulled, but they had a rather brilliant character arc between them which I felt probably could have used a bit more time to flourish. The idea of having someone so dependent on you you, giving you something to look forward to each day, to then have it taken away because they decide they shouldn't depend on you and they should go on this wild trip to Antarctica without talking to you first is rather intriguing. And though I felt satisfied with the conclusion of this at the beginning of the series, I can't help but feel like they could have done so much more with it. Many watching the series probably won't even care too much about this mini arc, especially with how early this happens in the series, and there are moments of Megami reference later on, but I can't help but feel like this was a missed opportunity to turn a good character arc into something truly special. The overall idea to the show is solid. The setting is unique for anime, the characters even as a trope would be fun to watch, but that's not enough to make this special. And because they made the central lead's character first and then added in the more tropey gimmicks second, it made this cast one you were excited to see each episode because you knew it was going to feel like a real group of people and not just 4 girls just there to sell figures and body pillows to fans. The characters felt human, including many of the side characters, and by the time this show wrapped up, I felt like I went to Antarctica with everyone and experienced something truly unique for anime. And many will brush the show aside for being a cute girls doing cute things series, but in actuality, this is a show about overcoming the obstacles in your life and not looking back. The aspect that caught my eye the most as soon as I started episode 1 was how they highlighted the characters. This isn't a common or really uncommon technique, but when present I tend to really enjoy it. The idea of adding this white highlight around each character model allows for the characters to pop out a lot from the backgrounds. Generally you just have a black stroke around the character model and that's that, and usually that's fine. But when you have a more colorful series such as this added white highlights around the characters' sides really let them pop out in the best possible way so you never really lose focus on the characters. Obviously you'll want to lose focus since the background art is stellar, especially in the more populated scenes. Never does it really feel like they're just trying to fill dead space when you see towns or streets packed full of people and sights to behold. It really makes you think this is a real place. And when you see Antarctica later in the series, they manage to take a frozen land and make it feel like you're experiencing it for real. I especially like how they detail the stormy nights. It actually feels cold, the way the wind blows the snow around, and how the characters are reacting really sells what they were aiming for. Now the character models are the most interesting aspect to the design in my books. At first I thought they were very formulaic, really cookie cutter formula you see with these types of casts, but quickly I saw that they weren't. The facial designs to the overall body structure actually felt more human than many series with similar idea for its cast designs. And with how the writing in the show makes you believe that these are people first and not just a template character, I felt like the designs matched that nearly 1 for 1. And the level of emotion conveyed from happy scenes to gut-punching ones, the animation really went above and beyond, and though this might not be a typical Madhouse production, the facial animation reminds you it is with the level of detail present in many scenes. To be honest, visually I have no complaints with how they handled this anime. The 4 main leads have voices that perfectly match the kind of characters that they are. And it's that kind of voice I tend to see English dubs not handle that well because for whatever reason, Japan just naturally nails these types of characters perfectly, and that's okay, because the voice acting is spot on here that no dub is really needed, though you know it will eventually get one. I really bought into the fact that these 4 girls are people, and another reason was with how the voice actresses handled their lines. Real people will just naturally joke around, talk in normal and not overly hyper ways all the time, and I felt the 4 leads, while at times felt like anime characters, often felt like 4 girls who weren't trying to be a character, but just real people. How all the scenes never felt quite the same with how they would talk with one another really sold the illusion of this not being a traditional anime. Now you will still hear the bombastic voice acting that is meant to be crazier than reality, but I felt the way the humor would bounce off their voice, or the more mundane talks would take place, or the screaming from the pain someone was dealing with, it actually felt human. And good voice acting adds a lot to a series like it did here. I didn't notice too much in terms of sound effect design, which is a shame, but where that let me down slightly, the background music stunned me. Minus a few cases, all the emotional music, the kind of score that's meant to give you butterflies from taking off to Antarctica for the first time, the moments where you see sights you never dreamed you would, the way the music was crafted was done in such a way it's not replaceable. The music in most scenes needed to be there, and no random emotional piece would sell the scene the same way like the music that they chose. Not to mention the opening is insanely catchy. I never would skip it when binging the show. Though I didn't feel as moved as many did when watching the series, the scenes that did have an impact on me were the ones where the music really went above and beyond. I find that people tend to brush things aside easily whenever they see a character that they think they can't relate to or is too different from themselves. But the idea of having a story isn't always about having to relate, it's about seeing something you wouldn't normally see. How many popular movie series in the West get popular among all ages set within within a school setting or a character still in school. But whenever it comes to anime, if it's a younger cast still in high school, it tends to be looked down upon. And when you have a pure anime like A Place Further Than the Universe that isn't riddled in fan service and shallow writing, and it's shunned before people even try it, it's a sad sight to see. I don't think Japan handles high school as well as many other countries more times than not when it comes to crafting a story for the setting. But just because a lot suffer from horrible mistakes doesn't mean all high school anime will. I award A Place Further Than the Universe my seal of approval. For some this will be a masterpiece, and then for some like me it's a damn fine ride that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. If you get more moved with the emotional pieces, you'll probably be more attached than myself, but nonetheless this was a great watch, and anyone brushing it aside as a show you can't watch because it's set in high school or it's an all-girl cast needs to step outside their comfort zone and try this gem. While watching this anime, I knew exactly what my recommendation would be for anyone wanting another show with a similar vibe, and that series is Blossoms for Tomorrow. This is a slice of life drama that is set within an inn with a group of characters, many still in high school, working at this said inn. The way A Place Further Than the Universe handled its cast reminded me a lot with this anime, which I personally think is PA Works' best series to date, so if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. But that's all for this video. Please let me know your thoughts down in that comment section below, and if you enjoyed, remember to leave a like, and if you're new, also be sure to subscribe. And if you like what you see here and you want to help support what I do for as little as $1 a month, then also consider heading on over to my Patreon. So until next time everyone, please take care and you all have a good one.